Ask something else.
What about Ghoulishly Yours, the Bill Gaines?
Ghoulishly Yours is a wonderful script, Joel Eisenberg, that I want to make, that the fuckers won't give me the money for, you know? It's a very difficult time to get anything of quality made. I'm not kidding. I'm very lucky. Burke and Hare's a small budget British picture, all British. I'm lucky to have that because it's a quality picture, but it's a very dark comedy and it's something I like. But have you watched the movies lately? I mean, Transformers is their idea of a good movie. You know, it's just because they make a lot of money. Everything's about marketing. Everything's branding. That's why there's remakes and sequels, because we already know the title. And one of the great ironies is like, I mean, I like Rob Zombie, but forgive me, you know, Carpenter's Halloween is great. His is a shampoo commercial. But nonetheless, that Halloween remake and the remake of Night of the Living Dead and the remake of, what was it called? Everything. Texas Chainsaw. Those movies make a fortune. Much more than the original movies ever made. Because it's branding. It's about marketing. It's a whole fuck thing. If you get to a long thing, if you follow the business, last week, the two heads of Universal were fired. The head of Walt Disney Pictures, Dick Cook, who's been there was fired. The Weinsteins announced they're cutting their staff in half. Money's tight. It's a very strange time because of many reasons, but it's a very difficult time in every business. But weirdly, the movie business, box office is doing fantastic. People are going to movies in droves and making a lot of money, but the DVD market has dried up. And nobody knows what the hell's going to happen. Everybody now downloads. And we have a whole generation of kids, and the truth is we have a whole generation of kids now who think it's okay to steal this stuff. To download songs without paying, to download movies without paying. I mean, it's a very difficult problem, because if you don't pay for it, no one's going to make it. So, and who's going to pay to make it? It's a very complicated issue. And also, like, our NBC Universal's for sale. Jim Tymons here. Oh, you heard? That man, Jim Tymons, is the reason NBC Universal's for sale. It's not true. Jim actually works at Universal Orlando. Have you been to the scary thing yet? What do you mean, yeah? Jim, you're failing. It's great. Have you ever been to that haunted thing at Universal? It's really good. There, that's better. Come on. Shit. Jesus Christ. Boy, they're lucky. See, I brought you, look, Jim. I brought you a copy of the new An American Werewolf in London DVD, so you don't have to buy it. You, however, have to buy it. No, it's a very weird time, honestly, and Ghoulishly Yours is a great script. It's a biopic. It's a biography of William Gaines. You know who William Gaines was? Yes, well, his dad, Max Gaines, invented what we call the comic book. He took Sunday funnies and put them in the magazine format, the comic book, like we have under glossy covers. Originally, they were giveaways with merchandise, but they were doing so well, he started a company called Educational Comics, EC. And for years, he was the king of the comic business. Huge. You ever see Classics Illustrated or stories from the Bible, furry animals and stuff? And then, in the 30s, comes Superman and the Marvel, you know, all the superheroes, and EC Comics went, pow. And Max Gaines died, leaving his company in serious financial trouble. And his son, who had no interest, took it over, Max Gaines, and I'm sorry, William M. Gaines. William Gaines is incredibly important. He changed the name from Educational Comics to Entertaining Comics, EC. Very much like, remember when, what's his name, McMahon said, no, wrestling's fake. Now it's not real wrestling, it's entertainment. Do you know why he did that? So they could take steroids. That's true, because in regular sports, you're not allowed to take steroids. So it's like, okay, we're full of shit, we're lying. And then it didn't matter, did it? Nobody, we know you're lying, we like it anyway. But anyway, so that's true. You think I'm joking. You know, do you think people are really like that? No. Anyway, so he made entertainment comics, and they created basically the horror shock comics, Tales from the Crypt, Vault of Horror, and then eventually Combat and Mad magazine. He was a genius. And the movie is his story. He also, I don't know if you were interested in any of this, but in the early 50s, Congress, you know Mark Twain's line about Congress? He says, suppose I was an idiot and a congressman, but I repeat myself. I love Mark Twain. The man invented God because he was, I'm sorry if I fucked that up. God invented man because he was disappointed in the monkey. He said. Anyway, the congressional, whenever anything's going bad or things are not right, what every president, every politician does, except Obama, which is kind of bizarre so far, but what politicians do is called, you ever see The Wizard of Oz? Remember, never mind that man behind the curtain, which is you attack something right away. Right away you attack something, okay? Well, in the 50s, with communism and teenage juvenile delinquency, and they attacked comics. Do you know that congressional hearings on comics? That was the beginning of the anti-communist bullshit, witch hunts. Well, Bill Gaines is the only one who stood up and said, hey, fuck you. He went and testified, and he stood up, and he told them the truth, because it's not true. I mean, you guys, most of you won't kill anybody tonight, will you? But you've been watching some pretty grisly stuff. But, the whole thing about, remember rock and roll? Rock and roll was the devil's music. Do you know this? I mean, it was Satan's music, and they used to burn records, and this congressional investigation was against rock and roll, this black music that is taking over, this voodoo jungle music that's turning our youth into wild animals, and comics, which is turning our youth into juvenile delinquents. And what happened, truthfully, was rock and roll started to make too much money. And General Sarnoff of NBC and Bill Paley of CBS, Capitol Records, they called up Washington and went, cool it with the rock and roll shit. And rock and roll suddenly was okay. You know, but they still went after the comics. They still do. Remember, they went after, whenever they want to draw your attention from something real, they go after entertainment. And Bill Gaines was really brave and stood up to them, and he created what was called the Comics Code, which is very much like the MPAA. You know, I don't know if you know, the United States, you don't know this stuff, is the only country in the world that has no official government censorship. It's amazing. I mean, England does, Canada does. David Cronenberg has not had 2 of his movies shown in Toronto, where he lives, uncut. You know, but we have, the motion picture community business, created the ratings boards, the different ones. Now it's the MPAA, with these ratings, and it is censorship. But it's self-censorship, because you can release a movie with anything you want. You just, you know. And the tragedy was X rating became associated with porno, which was you know why that happened? It's actually interesting. Do you know Paramount made X-rated movies? They made Midnight Cowboy. Warner Brothers made Clockwork Orange. These are X-rated movies. All X meant was it was for adults. But the porno business, which of course is not a member of the MPAA, started saying triple X. So X became associated with pornography, so it became a problem. Anyway, so we have that. And so he created that for the comics. You can still see Comics Code stamps on all your comics out there. What happened was he created it, got all the comic book companies involved, and within a year, he quit. Because he had a story in which an astronaut goes to another planet. You remember this in science fiction? Goes to another planet, he's wearing spacesuits, you never see him. But it's a planet of androids and robots. And he's going to see if they're enlightened enough to join this Federation of Planets. It's what Roddenberry ripped that. Between Forbidden Planet and this story, Roddenberry made a fortune. Anyway, so he goes to this planet, and there are all these robots, and he finds there's red robots and blue robots. And the red robots have all the good jobs and are very wealthy, and the blue robots do all the work, and they're not educated. And so the astronaut who's wearing a spacesuit so he can breathe on this planet says, what's the difference between the robots? Well, there's no difference. It's just when they're manufactured, half of them go that way to be blue and half of them go that way to be red. And they're painted, and if you're red, you're treated like shit. And if you do the work, and if you're blue, you live. So the astronaut says, okay, you fail. I'll come back. And he goes back on his spaceship. Now remember, this is 1959 when he wrote it. And he takes off his helmet, and he's telling them, you know, that this planet's not ready, and he's a black guy, which was a big deal in 1959.